1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. Is this thing even working? Oh, hang on, I think I've got it. Well, 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 guess who's back? Back again. JC's back. Tell a friend. That's right. I, Jeremy Clarkson, have come back to host the MFMI results reveal once again. This time, though, I have not come alone. We will get to that, however. Anyway, another equally grueling and exciting edition of the Magnetic Fields Memorial Invitational is officially in the books. As always, it was a journey that had its high points, as well as low points. While, for the first time since 2020, we did not break the record for the number of participants, we saw the debuts of two major prospects. First, we have the Englishman, infamous Ghost 07 in his eye-popping Evo 4. The other newcomer, Spain's SONY, also brought quite the dapper ride. Can I get it from you for £5, mate? Right, enough dilly-dallying. Let's get down to business, shall we? Lads and gals, here it comes, the official Magnetic Fields Memorial Invitational 2024 results. And we are off to the races with day one of the event. On the agenda are Clocanog Mid and Penmachno South. Right out of the gate, two drivers quit the competition. Yeah, go figure. Good riddance, chaps. As for the rest of the pack, we shall start off with Noni, who was sadly disqualified from the whole rally, following the discovery of disallowed game modifications being used by the Spaniard during the course of the rally. Up next we have a helix of G4 and G3 drivers. Remarkably, the famed brothers of destruction, that is Espinala and Lucis, are the fastest and slowest of the bunch respectively. Shockingly, Sparta Remixer and Tribal, the latter retaking the whole rally as a punishment for the same offence as Noni, did not crack the top 5. Admittedly though, the former was brought down 2 places due to the weaker car bonus, something that would become the theme of this veteran's misadventures. Then, at number 5, we've got quite the revelation in Carol Pieper, who had an even faster raw time than the reigning MFMI champion. Terrific job! His G2 mate was even faster, however, which resulted in the Ketrab securing his favourite number 4 spot. Now, opening the top 3 is the dark horse of the event, the other of the two Czechs, Mr. Foreman. Promising start, exactly as everyone had expected. Ranked second is the wily veteran, Ephemeral. If we ignore the weaker car bonus, the pole boasts a remarkable 25-second lead over the second fastest driver. Alas, the bonus favours his rival, Penzior instead, who steals the leg from Ephemeral thanks to his significantly lower time multiplier. That is not to take away anything from the Cordoba driver though, as his underpowered car is the only thing keeping him from beating records left and right. So then, congratulations to the leg 1 victor. Let's now move on to the second leg. Comprising Myerin and Hafren, day 2 brought about yet another DNF, as Lucis was in no condition to continue the rally after the 3rd stage. Moving on up until the 7th place, no change occurred in the rankings, although Bros the 3rd scored big on Hafren, where he placed 5th, above even the MFMI champion. Then, just below the podium, Sparta Remixer overtook both the Ketrab and Carol Pippa, following 2-stage P3s, which was additionally helped by subpar performances from the 2 on the snowy course. Finally, at the top, Ephemeral has slipped down a rank as Mr. Foreman relentlessly held onto his tail on both stages, especially on Hafren, where he was less than 2 seconds away from victory. The weaker car bonus gave him a substantial advantage over the Peugeot driver on this day, and it is no different in the case of Penzior. The current leader retained his number 1 spot by securing finishes in the top 5 on both stages, boosted by the almighty WCB. Great job by the Seat owner. Right, time to talk about the Vauxhall Rally of Wales finale. As already discussed, 4 competitors scored around 0 points, either by failing to finish the rally or due to disqualification. Then at number 12 we have one of our debutants, infamous Ghost 07. He was the slowest on 4 out of the 6 stages, therefore, unsurprisingly, he only gets 5 points. Up next is Brus the 3rd, who dropped to 11th place following a rather disappointing final leg of the rally. 6 points for the man from parts unknown. In fact, he switched places with Red T, who picks up 7 points. Well deserved, since the Frenchie had the 8th and 7th best time on Defy and Garthiniuk respectively. Somewhat disappointingly, ranked 9th is Erto, who only placed below 6th on 2 stages. His car is the Impreza though, which has the second highest time multiplier. He simply must aim a bit higher. Next 9 points go to Espinala, who barely held on to the 8th place after a weak showing on Garthinog. He is currently leading in his group. Very nice. Slipping down 1 rank and taking home 10 points is Karel Pipper, who was the second slowest on Die Fight, but fared slightly better on the final stage. Quite low for G2. Stealing his former 6th place is none other than Tribal. The champ, in turn, emerges as the slowest G1 driver despite bouncing back all the way to 2nd place on Garthinog. Too little too late, mate. The 5th and 4th place did not budge since the previous leg, and they belong to the Ketrab and Sparta Remixer respectively. Notably, Remixer attained his 3rd P3 on Diffie. No surprises otherwise. Lastly, the situation on the podium reverted to the state from leg 1, as Ephemeral took back his 2nd place from Mr. Foreman, having completed his flawless stage victory streak. The winner of the rally, however, did not even get a single podium finish on this leg. He is the Cordoba driver after all, therefore his P4 and P6 on the last day in Wales are as impressive as a triumph in a proper A8 car. Ladies and gentlemen, your Vauxhall Rally of Wales victor, Penzior, congratulations.
Oh, hello there. I am Richard Hammond, and I will be presenting the Pirelli International Rally results to you. Ready? Okay, let's go. Right, we begin with the longest stage in the championship, the pitch-black Churden Head. Luzis is still nowhere to be found, so we shall forget about him until the next rally. As we are slowly getting used to, infamous Ghost 07 claimed the last non-DNF rank, while Red T placed right above him. Next up, letting us all down yet again, is Erto, 4th worst time, even without the weaker car bonus. Not good. And look who it is at number 10. Avoiding disqualification this time, Noni registers a mildly impressive sub-18-minute run in his actual debut. Right above him, with nearly identical times, are G4's Bros III and Espinala. Pretty good for Mr. Bros, actually. Then, shockingly low, we've got the Ketrab in his Lanevo. For the first time this year, his G2 colleague and the group's current leader, Karel Pipper, fared better, albeit by a mere 4 seconds. At number 5, we got a bit of a drop from the Wild Horse S Foreman 135 LS. 3rd best time without the WCB though, so not too bad. Finally, in the top 4, we've got ourselves the classic lineup. Well, you may call Penzior the odd one out, but he is well on his way to becoming its mainstay. Now, let's take a look at the second stage, the Deadly Fallstone. And it wouldn't be Fallstone without a scrumptious DNF. Who was the victim, you might ask? When faced with this question, 9 times out of 10 it's either Luzis or Espinala. The former was already out, so yep. This made everyone up until the 7th place advance by 1 position, except Erto, who remained 11th. This is clearly not the veteran's year. Aside from that, the leaderboards literally haven't changed one bit. Shoutouts to Red T though, as he pulled off the 6th best stage time. We shall now move on to leg 6, Kershope. Here, all shuffling took place within the range spanning from the 5th rank to the 11th. Bros III falls a whopping 4 spots, down to 11th after an abysmally slow Kershope. He actually switches places with Erto, who has finally broken through with a decent run, which turned out to be the 6th fastest of the bunch. Red T and Noni do the exact same thing, as the Frenchman finished the stage right ahead of the Spaniard, albeit with a remarkable 40-second advantage. Last but not least, Mr. Foreman completely botched his Kershope run, registering the 3rd worst time. For this reason, he drops to 7th place, which subsequently elevates his countrymate as well as the Ketrab 1 rank each. Moreover, his poor performance allowed Tribal to score his 2nd stage podium so far. Moving on, leg 7 marks Noni's further descent down the leaderboards, following the 3rd slowest result on Pundershaw. Bros III is the beneficiary in this situation, as he takes Noni's place on the board. A couple of spots higher, we've got Karel Pipper tumbling down 2 ranks after a penalty-riddled Pundershaw. This allows the Ketrab and S Foreman to move up 1 place each. Remarkably, the Polish Evo 5 driver finally landed a stage podium on the foggy course. Well done, mate. Right, that concludes leg 7 as we enter the Pirelli International Rally finale, consisting of the rainy Riccarton and Newcastleton. And what a sensational day this was. Firstly, we've got infamous Ghost failing the inspection right before the last stage. Crikey! Next up, following P8s on both stages and retaining his 11th rank, it is the other rookie, SONY. Above him is the first change in the rankings, with Bros III overtaking Red T after an upset on Newcastleton, where he placed 5th. Nice job, here are your 8 points, sir. Then, from number 8 all the way up to number 4, there are no advancements or demotions, as Erto, Karel Pieper, S. Foreman, the Ketrab and Sparta Remixer pick up 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13 points respectively. Huge shout-outs to the Ketrab for his P2 on Newcastleton, by the way. Really lovely stuff. All right, time to discuss the top 3 now. And oh boy, is it interesting. Ephemeral and Tribel performed just as you'd expect, with the former completing another rally without missing a single stage win. Staggering achievement from the 2020 champion. But what in the world happened with Penzior? The current contest leader took a massive penalty ahead of this leg, but he hardly fared any better on the closer. This hiccup proved to be his downfall as, get this, he barely finishes the rally on the podium. This allows Tribel to avenge his underwhelming Vauxhall by taking home 15 points, whereas Ephemeral's perfect streak is ultimately rewarded with a triumph in the whole rally. It doesn't end there. Just look at the victor's rally time. He absolutely demolished the previous MFMI record and left the opposition in the dust. What a spectacle.
One day, probably in Wales, you'll find yourself, wait, what do you mean I'm not doing Wales? What? I'm late and we're already in Scotland? Oh, cock! Anyway, let's look at the first leg of RSAC then. That is Twigley's, Yair and Cardrona. Shockingly, everyone who participated in the leg actually completed it. The 2 rookies occupy the bottom of the list, even though SONY did fairly decently on Twigley's and Yair, as opposed to infamous Ghost who was dead last everywhere. Similarly to the Spaniard, Red T hung out around the 10th place on all stages, but his unfavourable weaker car bonus only allowed him to rank 12th overall. Bros III placed right behind the Frenchie on Twigley's, but he was slightly faster on Yair and Cardrona, hence he comes in 11th. Shockingly, Lucy's was the 6th fastest driver on the opening course and did not drop below 9th on the remainder of the leg. Again though, his overall rank is only 10th due to the high time multiplier. Still not bad! Next up, it is Espinala and Erto claiming the 8th and 9th spot respectively. These two literally converged as the leg progressed. Spinala performed rather poorly throughout, but he receives a hefty bonus for his rubbish Cordoba, which is why he is ahead of Erto, who placed in the middle of the field on Twigley's, then a little lower on Yair, then finally on Cardrona. The two got the exact same time, down to the 100th of a second. Bloody Nora! Right then, up next to the 2 G2 drivers, Karel Pieper ranks 7th despite placing near the bottom on Twigley's and Yair. He is another Cordoba owner though, so in reality his runs were not so horrible. The Ketrab in turn leads in his group after the very predictable 2 P5s and a P6. At number 5, it is actually Penzior, who was forced to take a penalty at the start, which dragged him down to 11th on Twigley's, which he followed up by a 5th on Yair and a 6th on Cardrona. The Seat is really starting to show its true colours. Finally, the usual bunch of blokes occupy the top 4 spots, although with a slight twist. For the first time this year, Tribel is in the lead. He may not have won any of the stages, but he stuck close behind Ephemeral on all of them to allow his advantageous weaker car bonus to do the rest of the job. Welcome back at the top, champ. Right, now we shall go over leg 2 of the rally, which is made up of Blacklock and Glentrool. The debutants were as slow as the day before, so they remain where they were. Next, Erto and Espinala each fall down 3 spots following 2 subpar runs. This allows Bros III and Red T to shoot up the same number of places, which is facilitated by decent times from the 2 on both stages. Loses, on the other hand, remains 10th, despite another P6 on Blacklock. Unfortunately for him, the Peugeot has the most adverse time multiplier, so sporadic breakthroughs will not be of much help. Then, We've got Mr. Foreman dropping from 4th to 7th after 2 mediocre efforts. Thanks to this, his countrymate advances to 6th place following a P11 on Blacklock and a shockingly spectacular Glentrool. Hang on a second, who is that in 5th? My word, it's Ephemeral! The seemingly unstoppable has been stopped, having his perfect win streak broken by 2 back-to-back losses. While his Blacklock was simply uninspired, his Glentrool was a total catastrophe because of major problems with the steering. How the mighty have fallen. Anyway, thanks to the circumstances, the Ketrab moved up to the 4th place, although it has to be mentioned that he achieved his first podium finish in this rally on Blacklock. 3rd in the rankings is still Sparta Remixer, but we shall celebrate his first stage victory this year on Glentrool. Magnificent job, keep it up. However, the day ultimately belonged to Penzior, who came back better than ever after the Leg 1 fiasco. He scored the other stage win and even got close to the MFMI record in the Cordoba. Outrageous! He did not let up on Glentrool either, where he placed 2nd. This, combined with Tribal's middling performance on Blacklock, brought Penzior from 5th all the way to the top. Way to go! Now it's the Scottish finale! And unsurprisingly, Infamous Ghost takes home 3 points, though he was only the 4th slowest on A. Nice! Then, 4 and 5 points go to the Brothers of Destruction, who completely faltered on the final stage. This means they collectively earned 4 points fewer than they would have the previous day. Benefiting from it is the 11th Noni, who had the best showing since Twigley's. The complete opposite can be said about Bros III, who scores 7 points, but his A was quite appalling. Above that, we've got Red T receiving 8 points after an all-right A, and Erto amazingly bouncing back up to 8th place following a P5 on the closer, his best stage result yet. The Ketrab wasn't as fortunate. A marked his worst performance yet, causing his rank to plummet from 4th to 7th. Blast and botheration. Meanwhile, Carol Pieper retained his number 6 spot in spite of only finishing 9th on the final stage. His checkmate did a checkmate on him by overtaking Carell, having completed A with the 6th best time. At number 4, it is Ephemeral who has managed to move up a place, but that's the extent of it. It's good to see that he has returned to his winning ways on the final stage, though. As for the podium, it did not change a bit from the previous leg, as the top 3 crossed the finish line on A in the same order they appeared in the overall rankings, just below Ephemeral, of course. This being said, congratulations to the trio and especially Penzior for his 2nd rally triumph. Fabulous job.
Greetings, my name is Tony Mason and you may know me as the voice in the main menu of Rally Championship. My job is to go over the SEAT Jim Clark Memorial Rally results and I shall do so right now. Let's go! And we are kicking things off with 4 DNFs, can you believe it? Espinala, S. Foreman, Luzis and Noni all have failed the inspection before the rally even properly began. What a drag! Then, as per usual, it is Infamous Ghost who completes the leg, but lags far behind the rest of the pack. Above him are Bros III and Erto, who had a pretty good moon and star, but not much to write home about since then. Astonishingly, the 7th Red T scored his first ever stage podium twice. Unfortunately, his inferior performance on the opener, the unfavourable WCB factor, and the short nature of the courses prevent him from finishing the day any higher. Moving on, 6th is Carol Pieper, largely thanks to the Cordoba bonus, as his individual results were rather forgettable. Less than a second ahead, although with the raw time being half a minute faster than Carell's, is the Ketrab. Inversely, finishing the leg just 11/100ths of a second faster, but helped greatly by the weaker car bonus, is Tribal. The disappointing P9 on Moon and Star shot down his podium aspirations, but he's still in the game. Opening the top 3 is the man who has been there since arriving in Scotland. A P3 followed by a pair of P2s can be summarised as a very good day indeed for Sparta Remixer. At number 2, it is the only man who finished the leg in under 12 minutes, and who once again conquered all of the stages. We are, of course, talking about Ephemeral. As you'd expect though, in the lead is none other than Penzior with his mighty SEAT. Notably, he was the runner-up on the opening course, completing it just a notch over a second behind Ephemeral. Well played. Right, as it is the shortest rally in the championship, we have already arrived at the Jim Clark Memorial Finale, and we are concluding the rally the way we began it, with more DNFs. Namely, we've got infamous Ghost and Carol Pippa joining the scrapyard. It is especially a bummer for the Englishman, because even if he was the slowest, he would have still doubled his score with another 8 points, had he just survived in one piece. What a pity. Anyway, moving along, up until the 5th place, not much has changed beyond some of the field advancing thanks to the aforementioned retirements. Picking up 9 points, Bross III ought to be commended for his P5 on Eccles, which he unfortunately failed to capitalise on, as he was the slowest on the last 2 tracks. Next, 10 points go to Otto, who really impressed on this day, especially on Langton, where he came in 4th. This marks his best rally result yet. Good going. On the other hand, Red T barely escapes with 11 points after slacking on the latter half of the rally. Luckily for him, his prior 2-stage podiums took him far enough to stay ahead of the pole. The next 3 competitors shall be discussed collectively due to how close to each other they've ended up. The day before, it was Sparta Remixer in the 3rd place, Tribel in 4th and the Ketrab in 5th. Remixer and Ketrab spent the day swapping places in the lower 2/3 of the podium, excluding Eccles, where Tribel managed to insert himself between the two in his Evo 4. Alas, the Ketrab might have won 2 out of the 3 battles, but he lost the war and stayed 5th due to his less successful first half of the rally. Tribel, however, despite placing 5th and 6th on the last 2 courses, was just fast enough for the weaker car bonus to elevate him up to the podium. Meanwhile, it was the other way around for Sparta Remixer. Even though he scored 2 stage podiums, the Impreza's time multiplier nearly caused him to drop even lower, as he barely manages to secure the 13 points. As for the top 2, it almost broke out of the norm as a result of Penzior's lethargic runs on Eccles and Langton. He recovered on Fogo, where he had the 4th fastest time, and, you guessed it, he has won yet another rally. Unprecedented domination by the young upstart.
So, we have arrived at the infamous Stena Line Ulster Rally. And who better to go over the penultimate rally than someone who is synonymous with the term second to last. That's right, I am Robert Kubica and this is what happened in Northern Ireland. And we commence with the rainy Hamilton's Folly and the treacherous Tyrone's Ditches. Let's see, somehow only one racer failed the inspection, that would be Bross III. Meanwhile, Lucis is still missing. Some say he's in the area, but he got distracted by the local pubs. Can't blame him, honestly. Anyway, the 2 slowest times belong to Noni and infamous Ghost, as we've gotten used to by now. The Spanish bloke's rank may come as a surprise, considering he scored an upset on Hamilton's Folly, but the longer Tyrone's Ditches didn't go quite that well. And he also hadn't gained enough of an advantage over the rivals in weaker cars. For example, Espinala was the slowest on the opener, and only 10th on stage 2, but he finishes the leg a few seconds ahead thanks to the compensation for driving the Cordoba. Right above him are Eruto and Red T, both of whom placed around the middle of the board on Hamilton's Folly and Tyrone's Ditches alike. The 7th Karel Pippa was just as consistent, only quite a bit slower. Nevertheless, it proved to be enough for the weaker car bonus to put him ahead of the Polish-French duo. Then unexpectedly, it is Tribel claiming the 6th spot, which is definitely a letdown after the Jim Clark Memorial podium. Evo 4 or not, P7 and P6 are certainly not his usual stage positions. Just a few seconds ahead is the Ketrab, who had a shabby run on Hamilton's Folly, but fared much better on the next course, where he secured the 4th place. And at number 4 we have a real bombshell, as it is S. Foreman coming back from the dead, and better than ever. He finally proved his immense potential on stage 2, which marks his 2nd ever stage win. Bravo, Pepichku. Next, opening the podium is Ephemeral, who suffered his 3rd loss this year on Tyrone's Ditches. This is not the way to go if he wants to compete with Penzior. Sparta Remixer achieved a slightly better time following 2 stage podiums, but it is naturally the contest leader who emerges as the rally leader as well. For the first time since Moon and Star, he actually cracked the top 3 on the opener, after which he got a P5 on Tyrone's Ditches, so he undoubtedly earned his spot at the top. Okay, let's move on to the second day in Northern Ireland, and it looks like Mr. Foreman lived a little too fast and subsequently died hard. Real shame, because he could have really shaken things up. Infamous Ghost did the same, but whether that's a big loss or not is up for debate. As far as the survivors go, Noni successfully overtook Espinala thanks to the impressive double P6. Espinala, on the other hand, well, he survived. Moving on, everyone below the top 5 advanced one place thanks to Foreman's DNF, but otherwise didn't overtake or get overtaken. Erto did land a P5 on Parkanur, however, for which some kudos are due. The Ketrab would have moved up one rank too, if it wasn't for Tribal, who jumps right ahead of him. The current champion was only 9th on Fini, but was the 3rd fastest on Parkanur. And lest we forget, he drives one of the weaker cars. Last but not least, the top 3 retained their respective spots without much direct action. Penzier performed even better than the previous day though, with another P3 and a P4. He's on a roll with no indication of slowing down. And just like this, we arrive at the Stena Line Ulster Rally finale. Looking at the results, not much actually changed in respect to the preceding leg. Espinala was by far the worst on both courses, and so he increases his tally by 7 points, with the total rally time almost reaching an hour. Further up the board, some shuffling took place, the most notable of which being Karel Pipa's rough fall from the 6th place down to 9th. No surprise, as he was the second slowest on Liznamak and Tardri, with the former seeing a massive, almost 2-minute loss to the next best result. Up next, staying in the 8th place is Red T, who actually came close to the podium on Liznamak. Someone else beat him to it, and amazingly, it was Noni. That's right, the Peugeot driver caught everyone off guard with his first ever P3 on the penultimate stage, and then concluded the rally with a P4 on Tardri. Here's to hoping he continues his ascent. Erto had none of it, however, and also pulled off 2 tidy runs, which have allowed him to squeak out 11 points. And that's it really, the Ketrab and Tribal alike had a pair of average times, while Ephemeral escaped with 2 more victories, despite major cooling issues. Sparta Remixer got the podium on both stages, whereas Penzier achieved that only once, his other result being a P6. Everyone from the top 5 remained in their places, which means only one thing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Penzier is the rally victor for the 4th time in this contest. Absolutely unbelievable form. Someone get this man an F1 contract.
The time has come. After 16 days of relentless competition, we have arrived at the final rally in the championship. The very last chance to make up for losses and snatch some precious points that can launch a gladiator into stardom. It's make or break. Go big or go home. And if in doubt, flat out. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nicky Grist, and you may know me as the co-pilot of one Colin McRae, as well as the voice of the greatest rallying game in the world. It is my honor to bring you the SONY Manx International Rally results. On your marks. 3, 2, 1, go! And off we go, this time in full force. No inspection failures, and even Loses is back with us. Speaking of whom, the Brazilian's fresh car allowed him to attain an impressive P7 on Port Sodric. Unfortunately, that fire was quickly extinguished with a P13 and a P10 on the subsequent stages. Still could be worse. Despite only being the slowest on one of the 3 courses, Infamous Ghost yet again finds himself at the bottom of the leaderboards. The biggest disappointment comes from S. Foreman, however, who scored a trifecta of P11s. What has happened to the dark horse? Ross III did ever so slightly better, although he was only a second away from having the worst time on Curraz. Red T came stumbling on the opener, but corrected his course on the remaining stages, which both yielded a P7 for the Frenchie. Then, in spite of occupying the last non-DNF spot on 2 out of the 3 tracks, we've got Espinala finishing the day 9th. As has already been proven though, driving the Cordoba certainly has its perks. Next, completing the leg over 1.5 minutes faster, yet being only 5 seconds ahead of the pole in the overall rankings for being a Peugeot owner, it is Spain's hottest export, Noni. Congratulations to the debutant for placing 5th on Port Sodric and Balaguer, by the way. As for Curraz, the 5th time there belongs to Erto, who claims the 7th spot on the rally leaderboards. Even better than that, he came tantalizingly close to his first stage podium on Port Sodric. Epic job, and may it finally happen on the last day. Now, the first driver to go under 21 minutes after adjusting for the weaker car bonus is G2's Carol Pieper. No revelations on the individual tracks, but slow and steady gets the 6th place. Moving on, opening the top 5 is Tribel, who oscillated between the 6th and 7th rank across the leg. Not bad, but losing to 2 G3 drivers on all 3 stages, as well as a G4 driver on 2 of them, must feel a bit deflating. For some reason, the Ketrab also floundered on Port Sodric, one of the speediest stages in the championship, the fastest car in the field, and he was only 8th. What is that all about? Thankfully, Balaguer and Curras turned out much better, but the Lancer enthusiast had best give it all in the finale, or else his dreams of a promotion to G1 might slip away. And he's definitely got a chance, because the second Ephemeral and third Sparta Remixer are within arm's reach. On the other hand, the two are anything but letting up, not leaving the podium, or the very top of it in Ephemeral's case, even for one moment. Finally, someone who is arguably still increasing his pace is the superhuman Penzior. He was the runner-up on Port Sodric and Balaguer and 4th on Carras. In the shoddy Cordoba, let's be honest, the only way he can squander his championship win anymore is if he literally crashes and burns. Not that anyone would wish that upon him, but anything can happen. To make things a bit more dramatic, let's refer back to the leaderboards as they stood before the last leg and go over every participant from the bottom to the top, shall we? Right. We are therefore starting with Infamous Ghost, who was the slowest up until this point. He only had the 3rd worst time on Faulty Will, but Ingebrek marked the return to the norm, as he was far and away the slowest there. However, it gets even worse. That's right, he finished in style by not finishing at all. Not in one piece at least. Very rough debut for the Englishman. Better luck next year. Up next, Lucis actually showed some fighting spirit and didn't do too badly in the finale. Thanks to this, he picks up 6 points to round off his participation. Moving on, 12th after the first leg was Mr. Foreman, who, following another flawed run on Faulty Will, shockingly followed in Infamous Ghost's steps and retired from the rally. To think he was one of the sleeper favourites at the start, what a pity. Anyway, Bros III ranked immediately above Foreman on the penultimate leg, but he hung on firmly enough to finish 10th overall and leave SONY Manx with 7 points. Red T had a little back and forth with Bros, but neither did much of note in the grand scheme of things, and so the Frenchie concludes the rally by closing the top 10 and scoring 8 points. Then 9th before the finale was Espinala. The Polish wrecker did end up surviving, but his times were so poor that instead of the 8 points that appeared next to his name the day before, he is only given 5. The next 3 lads retain their respective positions, following also mostly uneventful performances. That would be Noni in 8th place, Erto in 7th and Carol Pieper in 6th. The one exception to those middling efforts was, well, it really was exceptional. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Erto, who achieved his sole stage podium on the championship closer. What a way to go out. Anyway, as far as numbers 5 and 4 go, they have ended up switching places. The reigning champion proved he still got it by overtaking the Ketrab, following a trifecta of decent runs to cap off the contest. Neither of them entered the top 3 on any of the stages, however, which Sparta Remixer and Ephemeral managed to do on all of them. Moreover, Faulty Will, Ingebrek and Kringle each saw Ephemeral scoring the win and Remixer being the runner-up. Now, the £1,000,000 question, where does that leave Penzior? As you may recall, up till this point, he was leading comfortably enough to be the one to dethrone Tribel, even if he didn't push to the max on the final stretch. After hundreds of punishing kilometres, his Cordoba could fall apart at any moment. It is truly awe-inspiring that it has even endured this long. Penzior, however, he'd had enough. He'd been taking it easy for too long. In his mind, it was time to decisively prove himself by embodying the mindset of the greatest rally driver in history. He went flat out. But was it worth it? Did he make the ultimate statement, or a fool of himself? Well, ladies and gentlemen, without a further ado, I have been Nicky Grist, and it is my utmost privilege to join forces with my colleagues and together announce that your winner and the 2024 Magnetic Fields Memorial Invitational champion, Penzior!
Poof. And
That's it.